To climb to the top in two different martial arts is a task that can be accomplished only by a chosen few. One of them is Henry Cejudo, who went from a phenomenon in the world of freestyle wrestling to the savior of the entire UFC division. Today we'll look back at the journey of the triple champion who leaves no one indifferent. Henry Cejudo is an athlete who made his name in two kinds of sports. From a young age, the future champion learned the basics of freestyle wrestling and was widely successful. Already at the age of 19, he won the Pan American Championships, and at 21, he won the gold medal on the Olympic Games. Wrestling was the meaning of his life, and he continued doing it until 2012. The Olympics were held that year again, and Henry was in the mood to repeat his triumph, but lost in the qualifying round. Then Cejudo decided to channel his energy in another direction and completely changed his occupation, going to MMA. The former wrestler chose to fight in the bantamweight division. Considering his status, as well as the weak competition in the weight class, it took Cejudo only 6 fights to end up in the UFC.
Cejudo doesn't like it. Cejudo takes him down. The knee behind the back of the knee of Hollis.
Decision, Henry Cejudo.
Nice inside trip, smooth. Cejudo wants him down. Cejudo gets him down. It's the cage.
Look at him block the hips, beautiful. Doing everything he can to get out of there, man.
Hooks the leg, gets a takedown. Nice work from Cejudo. Inside the
Henry Cejudo.
Dustin Kimura, with a 2-2 record in the league, was called upon to welcome the promising debutant, but in the flyweight division.
Henry Cejudo in the gold.
A basic wrestler of the highest caliber gave a master class in striking. Afraid of missing a takedown, Kimura backed away, and Henry caught up with him and punished him everywhere. Low kicks, hooks, and a hard right cross from the Olympian. He even registered a knockdown with that punch in the first round. Cejudo won every round here and improved his record to 7-0.
Strength of growing up in such difficult.
He's got to turn this into a dogfight. He's got to figure out some way to be effective in this fight, and it's not going to be by hesitating. And Cejudo is just stalking him, just looking for these openings, and he's winging. Beautiful lead left there by Cejudo.
Prior to the UFC, the level of the Messenger's opponents left a lot to be desired. Only 2 of them to this day have a non-negative record, so there might have been questions to the guy in terms of striking, but it proved to be an incredibly talented prospect. Management took that into consideration, and the Olympic champion's next fight was already scheduled against recent challenger Chris Carriazo. Kamikaze came to the promotion from the legendary WEC promotion and has been fighting at a high level for 4 years now. This time, the young talent had to work a lot more in his native element.
The Gone Girls in the Big D. Here we go. Red trunks for Chris Carriazo.
After the first round with a prolonged clinch, Carriazo realized that Henry could hold him like that for the whole 15 minutes.
Yeah, beautiful right hand and left kick behind it.
Kept pushing forward.
So he didn't defend himself from the transfers, but even began to call his opponent for grappling exchanges. Cejudo wasn't a jiu-jitsu master at that time, but his wrestling base was enough to cover Chris from above and not get caught into submissions. Another 30-27 victory.
Who went to the Olympic a training session for Cejudo in a lot of ways. He's competing, but he's also... Yeah, it's like a variation on the crucifix.
Yeah, there's that up kick again.
By out here, Carriazo getting a hold of a leg with seconds to go.
Final seconds, he's
Lost
free.
it.
Henry the Messenger Cejudo.
With this win, the prospect firmly established himself in the top 10 of the division. The goal of the matchmakers was to get him to a title fight against local hegemon Demetrius Johnson as soon as possible. But the Arizona wrestler needed more victories for that. No one would throw Henry under the tanks, and his next opponent was a tough Chico Camus with the 13th ranking number. Unexpectedly, the fight was hard for Henry.
Here we go! The gold trunks for Cejudo.
His wrestling wasn't working at all against Chico. Cejudo tried to make a single leg takedown.
Cejudo, wow, huge. At one point, 12-1 today. Wow. I mean, it changes depending upon the betting, but based upon the
double leg takedown.
Coach as well. And he just landed, Camus landed a nice left hand on some. Oh, there's the takedown he's looking for, but look at that, like a spring.
Right back
Camus
up.
right back up to his.
But all to no avail. His opponent stayed on his feet. The Olympian was the aggressor in the stand-up, but they were almost equal in their significant shots. The future champion was much stronger only in frequent clinches, which in the end brought him the victory by unanimous decision.
Oh, there's a good exchange by Cejudo. Consistently press Chico Camus up against the cage and make Camus defend to let him learn and grow. Wow, he gave up the position.
Henry the Messenger Cejudo.
In spite of the problems in his last fight, the American was moved up by 2 points in the rankings, and now he was at the very bottom of the top 5. He wasn't far away from a fight with the Mighty Mouse, or rather one big victory. Jussier Formiga was at the same situation. The Brazilian had a very tough beginning in the UFC, losing 2 fights by knockouts.
Excellent combination for Benavidez and a huge knee. Formiga, he's covering up, that'll do it. Joseph Benavidez.
But then he came back and won 3 fights in a row.
Jussier, it's within range. There's the tap. Jussier Formiga. Busted.
And entering the top 3. By beating Cejudo, Formiga also had a 100% chance to fight for the title.
You ready? Let's go, come on.
An extremely close and difficult confrontation for the judges. In the first 2 segments, everything flowed very neatly. The basic wrestlers didn't risk to go for the takedowns and were shooting over their hands.
Talked to him yesterday. He did comment quickly on Demetrius. Formiga's landed some nice counter strikes, but here's Cejudo using that takedown to win the round.
Tonight, Neil Magny, Kelvin Gastelum in the main
And
event.
also with their knees. It seems that 70% of all shots in this fight were knees from the clinch.
Another nice knee to the body of Cejudo in the clinch. Just physically very strong. He did not look very good at the weigh-ins. Quick inside trip.
In the final round though, Henry Cejudo took the lead. He successfully hit a few times, worked his way into the clinch.
Body lock here for Cejudo.
And made a takedown.
With his strikes, he's landed 66% of his total strikes.
The judge's opinion was divided. One judge gave the vote to Jussier, but the other 2 decided that Henry was stronger and he was declared the winner.
Henry the Messenger Cejudo.
From its inception, the UFC's flyweight division has been weak on names in competition, and one of those reasons is Demetrius Johnson. The mixed martial arts legend started in the league at bantamweight and even got a title shot there. But young genius Dominic Cruz dismantled the guy in every aspect.
Pushing forward again. Head kick. Got caught though. The leg
Look at this, he turned for leg locks and to possibly drop down for a leg lock.
Oh my!
Beautiful.
And still, the undisputed UFC.
At the same time, the promotion created a new weight class where Johnson immediately went down and soon found himself on the throne. By the time when Cejudo came into the league, the Mighty Mouse had defended his belt 7 times and looked invincible, but Henry was going to argue with that.
Here we go! Tonight's Fight Club brought to you by Harley-Davidson.
The Olympic champion started the encounter with a clinch and a nice takedown.
Whether or not Henry Cejudo, look at this. Takedown.
But it soon went downhill. It turned out that Johnson drew conclusions from Cejudo's fight against Formiga. In the middle of the round, a horrible knee flew into Henry's body, and that was the beginning of the end.
He's in big trouble early. Great Muay Thai trying to finish it, and it's all over!
After hitting with another knee, Cejudo collapsed to the canvas, where he was instantly finished. A resounding victory for the champion.
And still, the undisputed UFC.
Despite such a monstrous setback, the messenger was still a young and promising guy who, for a lack of an abundance of challengers, could soon get a chance for a rematch. The shortest way back to the top was through the eternal #2 flyweight in MMA history, Joseph Benavidez. The American's entire career in the bantamweight and flyweight divisions fell during the reigns of two unicorns, Dominic Cruz and Demetrius Johnson. Both of them defeated Joseph twice, but Benavidez also defeated all other opponents. By beating a guy like this, Henry could definitely ask for a new fight for the belt, but he still had to win first. A fight between two opponents who were as close in the level as possible, and who chose completely different tactics. Henry worked at first number and exploded with combinations, as well as throwing a lot of punches and kicks. Benavidez parried most of the lunges, ducked a lot, and changed stances. But at the right moments, he took the space and met Cejudo with shots, while also getting creative with kicks.
Henry Cejudo than we have seen in fights past.
Yeah, it could be part of the emotion. And there's that counter left hook again for Cejudo.
Nice kick to the body for Benavidez.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm impressed with how quickly Benavidez recovered from getting rocked above the waist, especially now that he's already had a point deducted. Ooh! He ate that kick to the chin.
The fight was bone and bone, and the clear leader did not emerge until the final bell.
Very nice right hand from Joseph Benavidez.
Benavidez just out of range with that combination.
Kick game, Henry.
Cejudo. Oh, beautiful combination, Benavidez.
Seen among those in the corner of Henry Cejudo. Certainly getting a fight from Cejudo.
Still, the two judges considered Joseph's performance to be more confident, and he prevailed.
Joseph Benavidez!
The journey from undefeated prospect to fighter with 2 losses in a row was very short. But it wasn't over for Henry. He disappeared from the radar for 9 months, and in that time he regained his strength and confidence and was ready to return. His fight against Wilson Hayes, who lost his last fight to the Mighty Mouse, was announced for September 2017. Cejudo came out fighting in a white karate stance and immediately began to surprise. It was noticeable that the former challenger bet heavily on the right cross, which he repeatedly threw between his opponent's hands. Henry added kicks to divert attention away from the right hand and also delivered a savory knee. All the traps were set, and at the very beginning of the second round, the Brazilian missed a monstrous right hand. Despite the small weight of the guys, the punch was so powerful that even a lightweight would have knocked out. A year ago, the Olympian was knocked out by the champion, and now he himself is the author of the most brutal KO. The return to the winning streak was as colorful as possible, and Cejudo is being talked about again. No clear challenger in the flyweight division had appeared recently, so the messenger was separated from a title fight by 1 or 2 opponents. Sergio Pettis was exactly in the same position. The younger brother of Showtime started his UFC career with a 2-3 record, but then put his strength together and defeated 4 fighters, climbing all the way to the 4th number in the rankings. There were even more similarities between the Pettis brothers than it appeared. In addition to their looks and last name, they shared a bad takedown defense, and against the Olympic freestyle wrestling champion, such a disadvantage equaled defeat. And so it went. Cejudo quickly realized that he had nothing to catch in the stand-up and moved on to native wrestling department, where in one word he devoured Pettis Jr. Henry took an easy win with a couple of transfers in each segment. As soon as the Messenger got his winning streak back, it was decided to immediately nominate him for a title rematch. Since their first fight, Johnson has had 3 more dominant defenses, with the last performance producing that legendary flying armbar that has forever been on the list of the best submissions in the UFC history. Despite Henry's clear progress and skills, he was still listed as the big underdog with plus 350. The fight was very dynamic and most of the time resembled a kickboxing bout where the advantage flowed from one side to the other. The champion was lighter on his feet, punching more often and more accurately. But Cejudo's explosions were much more powerful. Plus, he managed to earn important takedowns in the 4th and 5th rounds. But 2 judges watched the fight and they both counted at 48-47 in favor of the new flyweight champion, Henry Cejudo. Henry's triumph was magnificent. He defeated the best fighter in the history of the weight class and took his place, but the joy was short-lived. Rumors that Dana White was going to close the weight class have been around for a long time, and after Johnson's defeat, they became even more entrenched. The flyweight division had never been profitable and interest in their fights was low, so league management took a risky step. The UFC offered TJ Dillashaw to come down to a lower weight class and fight for the second belt. And if he won, they would forget about this category like a bad dream. Everyone was happy with that plan except champion Cejudo. Everything about Dana's plan was perfect except one thing. Dillashaw, for all his mass, was not built for flyweight division. At the weigh-in ceremony, he looked more like a resurrected skeleton than a champion, and in the fight it showed right away. TJ fell from the first punch, and after that he couldn't even get on his feet and was instantly covered and beaten by the Olympic wrestler. In 30 seconds, Henry defeated the owner of the entire flyweight division. The destruction of Dillashaw became a sensation, and Henry got a huge increase in the audience. Despite all the strange antics, the Messenger was interesting to people largely due to unique achievement of becoming the first UFC champion to own an Olympic medal. But even that wasn't enough for Cejudo, and just a couple of months later, the Messenger would move up a category and fight for the vacant bantamweight belt. TJ was stripped of the title after a positive drug test, and now his goal was to be fought by Cejudo and Brazilian knockout artist Marlon Moraes with a 3-fight winning streak. For 2019, the Brazilian was the division's biggest threat. His deadly kicks throughout the tiers truly broke people down. In the first minutes of the fight, Cejudo felt it on himself. Marlon relied on low kicks and showed absolutely no mercy to his opponent's legs. But Henry was waiting for something. Already midway throughout the second segment, Moraes had slowed down and faded away, while the champ turned on. The Messenger smashed his opponent with creepy knees in a tight clinch. And in the next round, he exhausted him completely and finished him off with an amplitude ground and pound 10 seconds before the bell. Henry Cejudo becomes a double UFC champion. No one had ever achieved such results in MMA before. Henry becomes one of the simultaneous double champions, which is already rare, and besides, he still had his Olympic gold. The Messenger began to refer to himself as Triple C and was now going to stay on top for a long time. The bantamweight division was undergoing a revolution at that time, and several super dangerous young athletes were on their way to the top. But Henry was lucky with his opponent because Dominic Cruz was back into action after another injury, who for old time's sake immediately got a title fight with the new king. The Dominator had come back and taken the belt before, but that was a long time ago. Now he looked much older and slower, and because of that, his style didn't look so unreadable. Cejudo was catching him with low kicks time after time, after which he had already switched to boxing combinations. Dominic continued to fight back unsuccessfully, until the fighters bumped heads in the second segment. As a result, the champion got a terrible cut and the fight was in danger of stoppage. But Henry was allowed to continue fighting, and here he went for the knockout. Seconds later, he cut his opponent with a splitting knee. Cruz collapsed on the floor, where the ruthless Henry destroyed him with a hail of punches. With even more ambitious goals, Henry Cejudo intends to return to the octagon soon. Will he be able to continue the chronicle of his sports contests? Time will tell us.
Strikes, he's landed 66% of his total strikes.
Clinch. Yeah, there it is. There's that wrestling. It's a training session for Cejudo in a lot of ways. He's competing to let him learn and grow. Oh, he gave up the position.
He has landed some nice counter strikes, but here's Cejudo using that takedown to win the round.
And as I said, the real question becomes whether or not Henry Cejudo, look at this.
Takedown.
Oh!